Okay, friends, let's look into creating dark mode before we go any further and create too many variables. So let's see how we're going to do this now. We have to create a new theme basically here in the variables palette. See, each of these columns is basically a theme, and you see I can change the value. So here in this name, I'm not saying this is awesome UX from Figma here, but in this name I'm going to call this light mode for now. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it vanilla, and this one licorice if you really want to. So this is now our light theme. If I add one, I can call it dark, right? They actually call it mode by default, so it's kind of interesting. So I guess you have modes, but you can have themes and modes. So it's kind of mixed bag at the moment. We could use some of these. I've called this theme. Don't have a best practice at the moment for doing different themes, but let's do this light dark. Another mode here in this theme could be a high contrast one, an accessible one. However, that would have two modes too. So this would be, for here we could create a new collection called high contrast or accessible or whatever, and then you would have light and dark mode here. So not 100% sure what the plan is with Figma to how many modes you should have and how the themes work. I kind of think they're making up as they go along, but let's just jump in. Our spacing system is the same. We don't want to touch any of that. Fonts are the same. What we really need to do is invert the colors. That's actually all we need to do for our mode. So here we have our basic palette, our named colors. Now the basic palette obviously will stay because that's going to be our complete color palette later on, which is theme agnostic. It's mode agnostic, maybe I should say. So we don't need to touch this. What we do need to touch, however, are the basic colors. Now, if you're in light mode and you have a particular blue, it might not work in dark mode, so there's some of the things we need to figure out, but we're going to keep it simple for now, right? And we're going to change, for example, background colors to their opposite. So instead of grey 10, we're going to have grey 90, right? Just for example. So this one is going to become grey 90. So you see that's in the light mode, it's dark, and in the dark mode, it's light. And that's what we want. So we need to create the polar opposites of all of these. So 90 becomes 10, right? Opposite. 90 becomes 10. Color text has its own, because this is an icon abstraction. Let's leave that for now and we'll come back to it later. 50s don't need to change, of course. You would obviously have to check the accessibility and the contrast ratio. 10 becomes 90. All right. Hover 10 becomes 90. 90 becomes 10. Yes, 90 becomes 10. 10 becomes 90. Accent hover 50, fine. 90 becomes 10. Grey 100, which is basically white. Color card BG, and we also want to actually create a background for our whole app, which we're going to call. I don't think we created it earlier. I don't remember doing it. We're just going to call it app BG or something like that. So let's create the variable now called color app BG, which is going to be 100 to our library, 100, and therefore we're going to need a new one here, which is going to be 0, which I believe we do not have, which we are going to have to create. So grey 0, grey 0, what was it called? Palette. Yeah, okay, I'm going to have to move this around here. Put that in here. Does that work? It does. Grey 0 is going to be, let's just say pure black. That's always going to be black, as I said, right? These are static. This is why sometimes it's called a static palette. Let's go to our named. Let's go to our app BG. Dark mode. We want to use our new grey 0. Okay, let's try and use that now. So yeah, app layout component, this is our master component for all of our mobile app pages. We're going to have to change the background color here, which is hard-coded, so to speak, which we do not want. So we need to choose our app BG color. Let's just filter it down. App BG. Okay, so it stays white because we haven't set the theme. So what theme are we on? We're on light. So if we change it to dark, as you can see, everything inverts. Now the grey becomes quite grey here, but that's fine. So the default at the moment is light. So you see there's a difference there. On the dark mode, this grey is hardly visible, and on the light mode, the grey is fine. So there's some tweaks that we would have to do, but in this essence, that is the essentials for creating modes. So just to recap, variables, new mode, most things stay the same. Your named colors, not your static palette, your named colors will need to be the polar opposite of whatever they were. It doesn't have to be the polar opposite. Of course you can tweak that, but it just has to work on both sides. So this is a simplified version to illustrate the point. It can become more nuanced. So now we have our light and our dark mode. Let's jump into some more patterns. See you there.